Howdy, 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 howdy. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Long time coming. Here we are, episode 24 of Anomalous America. Appreciate everybody's patience. Delay after delay. Greetings from Tulum. Thanks for popping in. Maximize. All right. Got some new mic software, so let me know how I sound. Okay, not too loud, hopefully. All right. So, yeah, here we go. Let people trickle in. Not going to waste too much time here. Hop into material. Camera settings have changed. There we go. That's better. Can we move this? Thanks. Good to be back. Missed you. Hope family's well. Yep. Yeah. Kokomo, Indiana. Welcome. Hardfire. Thanks for joining. Mr. Biggs. Always good to see you. Where have you been, Ben? Yeah. Good question. Well, trying to make a comeback right before the holidays was foolish. And it was one thing after the other. So, yeah, you know how that goes if you have kids and family and work, and it's just a busy time of year for me as well. You know, I have multiple jobs outside of YouTube as well as being a father. So, stressful, busy. Feel like I let you guys down. You know, dealing with all those things on top of all the other responsibilities I have. It can be hard to prioritize sitting down and putting things like this together. So it's frustrating, and I know it's frustrating for you guys seeing reschedule after reschedule after reschedule, but it is what it is, unfortunately. And I think the biggest lesson I'm learning is A, humility, B, to stop making set, scheduled times, because there's so many variables in my life that they need to be a little more flexible for me and for you guys, but it is what it is. So, but believe it or not, I've been getting a lot done, so that's felt really good. And when it comes to doing material like Anomalous America, yeah, I have episodes that I enjoy and some that I don't, and that's just the nature of the beast. And North Dakota's been pretty hard. Halfway through the series, I got a new computer and built a whole new setup, and went from doing all my editing and recording and everything on a laptop to building a computer that could handle everything. And like I had mentioned to some of you before, a lot of my material is 5, 6, 7 years old, and filtering through it all has been a bit of a chore. Some episodes come easier than others, and North Dakota and South Dakota being just the Dakota territory for much longer than many states made it rather difficult to segment this. In fact, I almost considered doing it North and South Dakota together as one episode, but I just thought that would mess up the whole flow once I'm actually finished with this series and I have every state. I wouldn't want to lump certain states together. So, anyways, it makes it easier to come up with excuses why you're putting things off and not getting things done. But that's all it is, excuses. So let's not waste any time. We're going to jump into it. As some of you may or may not know, I like to hop on Twitter. I have a thread going for this episode that's, I don't know, a month and 10 days old. And yeah, we'll go through that, look at some images, and jump into some material. And so let's just get moving. Again, appreciate all of you for being here. Let's share screen. Thank you for saying that. I am unmuted. Yeah, well, so now when I remove myself, give me 1 second. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's frustrating. How do I? Okay, can you still hear me? Okay, it says you can still. Yeah, the button I used, because I have presets, it muted me and removed my video. Okay, here we go. Audio's working. Okay, so what I was saying was, I like to point out capitals and, old architecture. And the Bismarck Capitol building here that you see at the bottom here and right here in the center. It's an important thing just to remember as we get farther into this episode. We'll talk about it more. Jamestown, Mandan, major railroad hub. Super interesting buildings. Passenger depot. North Dakota State Capitol. Remember the building I mentioned? 3 different renditions since its inception in 1883. The first version there is little to no information about. Its construction and destruction is a mystery. So here you have the first version, version 1. Okay. There aren't a lot of good pictures. 5 is about the most. No actual photos. Here's rendition 2 on fire, which is this building here, which has got 3 different versions of the building. Which is very, very strange. And then here's the famous Roosevelt cabin, which you don't see in the actual first images of it, which was supposedly the whole reason why the Capitol was established. And then here's version 3 with the Lincoln Memorial, and out of frame was version 2. This was one of the tallest buildings in the United States at the time, obviously, aside from west of the Mississippi. But yeah, this building here, completely gone. There's no information about its. Whenever you look up this Capitol building, you'll only find information about this fire. You won't find any information about version 1, which now on episode 24, we've had at least 5 states where the original Capitol building has all but vanished, and there's at least 1, if not 2, versions that follow. And just think of what it would require to build this. Right, the story I believe was 1883. Yeah, let alone remove it. You've heard me talk about what goes into some of these buildings and the population. The population of Bismarck in 1883 was under 2,000. And the infrastructure and the materials and transportation and construction and all of these things, even if you had every single soul working on this, it still wouldn't add up with all of the things that go into it. North Dakota Penitentiary, built in 1885. So, sometimes with these states, you find that these constructions are spread out over 10, 15 years. But North Dakota is an interesting one because just about everything's built in 2 years. So you have the Capitol building in 1883, the penitentiary in 1885, the state hospital in 1885, the university in 1883. We'll go deeper into each of these a little bit further as we go along, but I'm just bringing that up. What it would take in a tiny little state like North Dakota, Dakota Territory at the time, to build something like this is insane, let alone the penitentiary building, which is absolutely massive, the North Dakota State Hospital Asylum, which is also absolutely massive. And it's not one building, there's like 7 on the property. And the university, same thing, about 7, 8 buildings, all massive stone buildings. And this background here gives you a really great idea. We're talking completely empty plains, nothing around. This is about as wooded, and you can tell these trees are all very young. Same with these. And, all buried, mud flooded. And keep that in mind as we talk a little bit more about the university. But I wanted just to read a little excerpt here from North Dakota's own historical society about the Department of Corrections, which wasn't even founded until 6 years after that building was built, which is very common. You'll find these. You would think that the group, the organization, would come before the massive building, but it never does. It always comes after. The Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation was created in 1989 and is responsible for the direction and general administration, supervision, guidance, and planning of adult and juvenile correction. Located in Bismarck, the state penitentiary is a maximum security prison and was authorized by the territorial legislature in 1883. It opened in 1885 and was governed by a board of directors appointed by the governor to serve 6-year terms. The warden was selected by the board of directors and served a 2-year term. In 1911, the Board of Control replaced the Board of Directors and was given the expanded duties of managing the state penitentiary and the state reform school. State reform school, also a massive building. The state penitentiary has sponsored a variety of prison industries throughout its history, and the North Dakota twine and cordage plant was established in 1899 and opened for business in 1900, producing binder and baler twine and rope. The purpose of the twine and cordage plant was to offer productive employment for inmates and to supply regional consumers with low-cost twine. Okay, I didn't get a picture of this, but we have to go look at this real quick. See if we can find a picture of this building. I meant to have an image posted, but no, that's not it. Oh, this is annoying. Well, shoot. It wasn't as easy as I was hoping. Anyways, this plant was a same type of a structure as these massive buildings. In fact, it looked just like the Penitentiary, absolutely massive. And the narrative that it was built to build cheap twine is ridiculous, outrageous. You're struggling to house a population, and you're building these buildings. Makes no sense. Kind of that classical Tartarian style, red brick, white outline. Very interesting. Sure, some of you are familiar with that pattern. North Dakota State Hospital Asylum. Crazy compound. I mean, just look at that. I know the quality of the image isn't the best, but you get a scope of the size of the buildings here. And remember, this is built 2 years after the Capitol building. And the same year, it started construction in 1883. Same year as the university. Same year as the Capitol building. Absolutely insane. I want to read a little excerpt from "These creepy asylums in North Dakota are still standing and still disturbing." The past cannot be undone, unfortunately, and the way we used to treat mental illnesses and what we did with the patients to either attempt to cure them or to just keep them locked away from society has ranged from good, yet misguided intentions to downright barbaric. Thankfully, times have changed, and the handling of developmental and mental disabilities has improved by leaps and bounds. In just the past half century alone. However, relics of this darker history still remain to this day. These are two such places and their stories, both of which are still here. Learn the chilling tales behind these old abandoned asylums of North Dakota. Now, just remember the narrative, okay, that I was mentioning earlier about the construction timelines, the size of the buildings, and the populations that we're dealing with. As I've mentioned in other episodes, many of these asylums are built hundreds of miles away from main cities, dozens to hundreds, in the middle of absolute nowhere, not on train lines, not on rivers. The transportation alone would just be mind-boggling, let alone this hospital would eventually go on to house over 2,000 people. It was designed originally to hold 1,500 people, and the population of Jamestown at the time was like 1,800 people. So this hospital was built with resources beyond measure, scope beyond measure, and large enough to basically house the entire population of the town, of the city. And there are two of these. If you're searching for abandoned hospitals near me, the North Dakota State Hospital still stands and operates today as a psychiatric care facility in Jamestown. Of course, today it is run much differently than it used to be. The hospital was built and opened when North Dakota was still just part of the Dakota Territory in 1885. By the following year, just over 100 patients were admitted. It was known by a different name, North Dakota Hospital for the Insane. Here's an actual photo. Also, what makes the Capitol building that I showed earlier quite interesting, right, is they're taking photos of this, but there's no photos of that Capitol building at all. Overcrowding. Okay, overcrowding. Now, remember what it said. 100 patients. Okay, it was designed for 1,800 patients, 15 to 1,800. But they say that in the beginning, it was only over 100 patients were admitted to the hospital. Overcrowding quickly became an issue. Now, again, like I mentioned, how in in an area with a population so small could overcrowding become an issue so quickly? Patients were sleeping two to a bed, and attic spaces were used. So look how big this compound is. And there are so many people in here that there's sleeping people in the attics. Not only that, but the hospital was severely understaffed. Patients were kept locked up or restrained all night and day due to not having enough people being there to attend to everyone. Controversial sterilization procedures were carried out on most of the female patients without consent. And it was thought at the time that their illness could be passed down to children. Now, you've heard me mention some of the reasons that women were ending up in these asylums. There were lots of lists of things that could get you put in these places, but having a child out of wedlock was reason enough to have you put in an asylum, which is crazy, considering how many widows there probably were due to war, famine, war predominantly, but in this time period. Religious fervor. You had a lot of so-called crazed Christians being put in these places. But yeah, what was going on that you had a hospital so large it could house the entire city that it was built in, and they go from 100 patients to overcrowded? These buildings of this size, it makes absolutely no sense. In 1953, a state health department official, Dr. R.O. Saksvik, was appointed to improve the appalling conditions. Gone are the cages, straitjackets, leg irons, stern guards, malnutrition, windowless seclusion rooms, unorganized departments, the naked, despondent patient on a backward, the odors from the wards crammed with untidy and helpless men and women. So this is universal. Again, I know I'm going deeper into the asylum stuff, and I kind of want to spend a little more time each episode talking about these because it's such an important marker to kind of what I've been hinting at with establishing our history and what was happening in the 1800s in every town, in every city in America. Massive buildings, destroyed or removed, no logical explanation for their construction or population to back up the years in which they're built. So many people in insane asylums and hospitals in every city. Remember, gosh, I can't remember which episode it was. I want to say Michigan, but I think it may have been Wisconsin. There was 13 mental asylums in Wisconsin. Double digits. And they were all the biggest buildings. You know, like my home state, Oregon. The largest building in Oregon in the 1800s was the insane asylum. And that is almost universal across all of the states. The largest construction projects, the most rooms, the biggest places, insane asylum after insane asylum after insane asylum. Who and why were they building all of these hospitals? And where did all these people go? You know, we talk about the orphan trains and the Industrial Revolution being funded, financed, and manned by children, slave labor. You know, is this where their parents went? I think in some cases, certainly, but there's certainly a lot of answers we won't find. But yeah, so expect in the coming episodes for me to go a little deeper into each of these asylums state by state. So I did a video, my last video, called The Mystery of the Mandan. And I said that was going to kind of be a lead up or a teaser to this episode. So if you haven't seen that, I recommend going back and watching that because there's a lot of material in that I won't have time to cover. I'll be covering some of the Mandan material that I saved for this episode that I didn't talk about in that one. So there will be some new stuff. But it's a big chunk of this episode is going to be talking about who these Mandan Indians were and why it's important to kind of piecing together this curious history of the 1700s and 1800s in America. 86 of you. Grateful for each one of you. Thanks for joining me on this cold Monday. I don't know, some of you are from Mexico, having a much warmer day than me. Jillian, thanks for being here. Appreciate you. Never miss an episode, it feels like. I really appreciate it. Old World Micmac. Good to see you, brother. Torture chambers. In 1932, my great aunt gave birth at Jamestown. Wow. For unwed mothers. Wow. Incredible. Well, thanks for being here. That's an amazing correlation. Yeah, it's I've mentioned before, I have 100 or plus articles about the hospitals, and that's definitely going to be its own little series or video at least, and we'll dive into some of the mandates and the reasons that people were being locked in these things, and it's absolutely appalling and crazy, and I think just more fuel to the fire as to what was really going on and what the real agenda was in this time frame. No graves when they had furnace boilers. Yeah, true. Chemtrails are the evolution of these asylums. Okay. Yeah. In one of my episodes, I get into talking about this German company that was buying up all the radium mines in America and how they were also working on chemtrails. Weird correlation there, but it just made me think about it. I guess this profile is hidden from my algorithm. What makes you say that? Did I miss something? I wish your videos had you narrating them still. Had you narrating them? Oh. I'm not sure what you mean. Anyways, okay. So, North Dakota University. They will finish up the construction here, but same type of thing. Massive brick buildings, stone buildings over a very large footprint, acres. Here's a photo. This is that same building here earlier that just got hit by a tornado, but same kind of thing. Mud flood, basement, stairs up to the first floor. Kind of the usual thing. And here's a little interesting article I came across doing research for this video. Try to get rid of the side profile stuff here. Okay, there we go. For Darren Burry, the opportunity to see the foundation of UND's very first building, Old Main, and to collect, analyze, and save brick samples from it was an experience he wasn't sure he'd ever get. The building's foundation had a history all its own, proving incapable of supporting the structure's weight, and ultimately leading to Old Main's demolition in 1963. We've heard this story so many times before, that the foundation was the problem, and that's what led to the building being destroyed or taken apart. Burry, facility and geology library manager at the College of Engineering and Mines, has made it his mission to preserve remnants of UND's past that lie just below the surface. My dream was to be able to see, photograph, and maybe even collect samples and touch the footings that failed under Old Main. He said, these footings were inadequate. It was one of the reasons the building didn't last as long as hoped. It started to settle almost immediately, and by the 1920s, they had to remove the top 2 floors to reduce the weight. It's not the first time we've seen stories like this. This is where UND all started, and it's part of the story you continued. It's a human story. It's not always a success. Sometimes there are failures, but it's where we are today. At the time it was built in 1883, UND's Old Main was the largest building in northern Dakota. See, okay. Do you already see the lie there? So, in 1883, UND's Old Main was the largest building in the northern Dakota territory. Well, we already showed that that's impossible, okay? Because this was opened in 1885. Construction started in 1883. This is certainly much larger. Not to mention the Penitentiary, same thing. Construction started in 1883, opened 1885. Supposedly built, but that's when it opened. And then this guy. So, hands down, nowhere near the largest building, but their own material. Again, the University of North Dakota is telling you this is the largest building in 1883. Old Main, as it's became known, was built in 1883 along the banks of the English Coulee, located between what are now Merrifield and Twamley Halls. It was demolished in 1963 with its location on campus marked by the Eternal Flame sculpture and Memorial Plaza. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. While excavating a trench for a new water line, the Merrifield Hall, workers uncovered part of the foundation along Old Main's west side. So again, the story starts out with this was kind of planned. He just couldn't wait to see the foundation. And then accidentally they stumble upon it. A buried foundation. I'd say 4 feet, 3-4 feet below ground. Just remember the old image here. So it's already a mud-flooded building, and they aren't aware of extra foundations found below ground. It's well known that Memorial Plaza was constructed over the old main site. But to see the bricks in the ground was awe-inspiring. They were placed there 140 years ago, before North Dakota was even a state, and no one has seen a part of this building since it was raised 60 years ago. Burry spotted some of the same characteristics he'd seen in the bricks and mortar used on other university facilities built in the late 1800s and early 1900s. So we've also talked about this kind of coquina style brickwork that's found in all of these old structures. These shells and this interesting type of mortar, tiny shells, mollusks in the Red River. But they've also found that many of these shells were saltwater shells, not freshwater, and provide a little explanation as to how they could have been shipped. The story is that the bricks factories were on the Gulf Coast, which is absurd. The bricks made from local clay, right, showed the finger and thumbprint indentations of the workers who made them. That's another part of this whole thing that puts a human face on it, Burry said. In 1883, somebody in Grand Forks area made and handled that brick. Yeah, of course. Now we're looking at an imprint that survived all these years. It's a connection to the humanity that was in the building. Anyways, it goes on to give you a bunch of dumb explanations for everything, but there's just so many questions that they permit with their own material, right? Just let alone this saying that this is the largest building, when obviously it's either the timeline's wrong or the photos are a lie or the construction's not true, or you just don't know who to believe. But yeah, so thought those were interesting and wanted to cover those a little bit. We'll read this article and then we'll do a little bit deeper. Actually, let's just talk about the Mandan a little bit. So again, I mentioned the video I did called Who Were the Mandan? And that's almost 2-hour video where I go pretty deep into, eyewitness accounts, more recent postulations into who the Mandan could have been, talking about their language, their religion, the fact that did they come from England? Were they Welsh-speaking Indians? Did they interbreed with the quote Native Americans in this region? On and on and on. But yeah, they were found with Welsh Bibles. They were not in their terms, but described by some of the early explorers to be Christian Indians. Fair-skinned, blue eyes, orange hair, rather tall, taller than most, and with very interesting religious practices, to say the least. We're going to skip ahead a little bit, and actually we'll just dive into an actual full article here. Thank you, Jillian, for sharing that. Appreciate you. I follow you, but you never come up in my recommendations. Okay, so that's what you were speaking of. Yeah, I get that all the time. It's pretty frustrating. 88 of you here. Wonderful number. I listened to all the previous shows. I appreciate that very much. Grammarica. Yeah. All right. So we're going to dive into a PDF here really quick. This one I didn't share in my Who Were the Mandan videos, and this is a pretty special one. So again, we're talking about the Mandan Indians. The earliest account that I can find of them was just before Lewis and Clark and their expedition west. French trappers who were, again, the narrative is that many of the forts established in the Dakota territories, these massive stone forts that look a lot like star forts, the kind of accepted narrative is that they were built by French trappers. But again, I've shown that there were hundreds of star forts all across America, and that narrative just doesn't hold water. It's kind of the same thing we're dealing with here. You have all these massive buildings being built in 2 years. And the university can't even get the dates right or what building was the biggest in the Dakota territory. I mean, obviously, the lies run deep. But yeah, so this is an article from 1878, I think. Sorry, reading so many today. Yeah, 1878. The Mandans at Berthold. A correspondent continues his ethnographical studies upon this curious and attractive people. Fort Berthold, U.S. Indian Agency, Dakota Territory, December 20th, 1878. In a recent letter, I tried to prove the origin of the Mandans. I shall now note a few brief personal characteristics of these peculiar people. The highest type of beauty among the ancient Jews were the blondes, or to speak more correctly, those with auburn hair or sun-kissed locks. Just so it is at the present day with the Mandans. The acknowledged beals of the village, are red-haired and blue-eyed. And among the men, the favorites of the Mandan beauties are those who can boast of luxuriant mustaches and long red beards. Oil is excessively used by these interesting people in dressing the hair, and the phrase "like the oil on Aaron's beard" might be changed to "like the oil on the Mandan's beard." The Mandans are a handsome race. The women have delicately chiseled features with exquisite teeth and red, full, pouting lips. They absolutely refuse to wear corsets and detest high-heeled shoes. And in consequence, their figures are perfection. They are tall and slim, and as they never work out of doors, being occupied constantly indoors with embroidery and crochet work. Their hands and feet are small and well-shaped. Nothing can be more graceful than the walk of a Mandan girl. They seem to glide over the ground, and all their movements are, in fact, the very poetry of motion. Bonnets are not worn, but in summer, parcels are extensively used to preserve the complexion from the sun. The men have the bold, springy walk of a Highlander, which is undoubtedly owing to their never, under any circumstances, wearing tight boots or using suspenders to their pants. Corns are unknown. The usual dress for the men is a flowing robe and very short trousers, which seldom reach the knee. The summer dress is a light native material of skin. Clawhammer or steel pin coats are not worn. The Mandans are passionately fond of music, both vocal and instrumental. They seldom sing solos, but prefer choruses, and consequently there are very few good solo singers among them. In the dances, the young girls frequently join hands and accompany their motions with a plaintive air as resembling Mary Had a Little Lamb. The dances are all of a grave and mournful character, with music in unison. I never saw any light or fantastic toes among them. I tried to teach them Johnny Fill Up the Bowl, but failed. They don't dance reels, nor do they waltz. Their musical instruments are chiefly drums. They have no violin, owing to there being no cats in the village. At funerals, the Mandan dead March is performed. It is more cheerful than the one from Saul, and I believe was furnished by David. They dislike, can't read this, I apologize, and are generally the dead are generally carried. The burial ceremonies are like those of the ancient Egyptians. And a Mandan lady is buried with her pocket mirror, box of cosmetics, combs, hair, something, jewels, etc. I do not know if they have mummies. On this point, they are mum. The dead are seldom placed in vaults, but a high scaffold is erected with red cloth. Black velvet is seldom used, and here the dead Mandan lady reposes, her cold cheek fanned by the wind and kissed by the sun. The men are buried like Sir John Moore, with their martial cloak around them. Among the curious peculiarities, sorry, I can't read this one either, of the Mandan are their names, which are taken from surrounding objects, so that horses, cows, bears, etc. are their namesakes. The name of Smith is unknown in the tribe. One of the old Jewish arts is still preserved among the Mandan, the art of poetry. The Mandan earthen pots are celebrated, but at present they are principally used by these people for culinary purposes and making pot pies. I mean, the pot pie, right? The Welsh pie, that's still a thing. Which the Mandans pronounce as if spelled guts. From their pottery, several of their surnames are derived, such as Potiphar, Potts, and Potter. Indeed, there are plenty of pots among them, and potters are frequently found on their committees. Pot hunting is, however, forbidden. How is the most common name in the village? The old Jewish Saronist names such as Jeremiah, Hezekiah, etc. have long since disappeared, and there is also but few Solomons among the Mandans. So much so that the want of Solomon has become a proverb. In the center of Mandan Square stands the ark with an arrow and a rat under it. It represents the celebrated mountain, whose name is still preserved in their tradition, on which the ark rested. Near the ark is the temple in which is celebrated the religion firmly held by the Mandans, called very properly Okipa. Everything that goes into this temple is kept and never comes out. Their language is broken Hebrew. Some of the words still preserve a marked resemblance to the ancient Hebrew, as for instance, the Mandan for the number 1, Magana. Only one white man ever was known to acquire their language, as few men have breath enough for the aspirates, or throat enough for the gutturals in it. When the Mandans join the other remnants of the 10 lost tribes and are restored to the Holy Land, they intend to drop the first syllable of their name, and instead of calling themselves the Mandan, tribe. They will say they are the tribe of Dan. Okay, I'm just going to read this again. When the Mandans join the other remnants of the 10 lost tribes and are restored to the Holy Land, they intend to drop the first syllable of their name, and instead of calling themselves the Mandan tribe, they will say they are the tribe of Dan. They are now closely watching events in Europe and read the newspapers carefully, fully expecting that the bear and the bull will fight, during which Turkey will be devoured and the road to Palestine opened. And believing implicitly in this, they are getting a large fleet of bull boats ready to descend the Missouri River. Whew! That may not stand out to all of you like it does to me, but that is absolutely one of the most incredible articles ever written about any tribe of, quote, Indians here in the Americas. That one should stand out especially to Old World Micmac. Lots of really powerful stuff there. Now, like I said, I didn't read this one in the Mystery of the Mandan. This one kind of stands on its own. I was saving this one for this presentation. 111 of you in the watching live. Appreciate you guys for joining in. Welcome. Okay, so I think I'm going to do one more that kind of is juxtaposed to this, talking about another group of natives, the Sioux, and the mystical rituals. Again, kind of bringing this Hebraic, Israelite, Masonic correlation full circle here in this area. But yeah, I'm going to look through chat here real quick. Do a horrible job of that. 3 affiliated tribes, Mandan, Hidasta, and Arikara, has a 5780 Welsh coin for fur trading post. Huh. Yeah, the Arikara. I had some stuff saved to talk about them just because they had some incredible leaders with very interesting stories about the history of their people. But unfortunately, just due to time, I didn't connect it here with the presentation. But yeah, that is insane. Thank you, Saturn. I'm glad you appreciate that. Cross Ranch State Park. Fantastic article. Yeah. Tribe of Dan. Yep. We talk about the Tribe of Dan reference and how the Mormons were using very similar affiliation, describing their bloodline. So I don't think that's a coincidence. Okay. Glad we made it for the show. Yeah, I'm super grateful that each of you are here. Okay, let's get into this one. This is from 1883. It's called Mystic Rituals. And although the Dakota Sioux will be kind of the main focus of the article, it correlates with a bunch of tribes coming to this region for special ceremony. Ancient Indian ceremonies, the enchanted cavern at Minnewacan. I'm gonna murder that, but that's okay. Okay, Lake Minnewacan. Okay, the Devil's Lake, central North Dakota. Indian legends, though vague and mystical, give an insight into the Aboriginal history and secret ceremonies of the dusky warriors that is generally interesting and oftentimes instructive. So going kind of back to the Who Were the Mandan video, I talked about the ancient scripture that the Mandans held. They had these, not only did they have a book, a Bible, but their own ancient text scroll. They had a scroll. And from what they were able to translate quickly off the scroll was that it was very much ancient Hebrew. And it was talking about some of these mystic rituals. So although this article will focus mostly on the Dakota Sioux, the overlays are very similar. For those of you that remember me talking about this in the Mystery of the Mandan video. Lake Minnewacan, now known by perverse translation as Devil's Lake, was evidently one of the principal gathering points of the Dakota Sioux. Its vast expanse of water, its beautiful groves, its surrounding hills and green vales caught the eye of the red man, and it now catches the eye of the tenderfoot. And it is the surprising something powwows and concaves were held at this interesting spot. But the legends of the Dakota Sioux refer particularly to the wonderful cavern situated somewhere near the northwestern point of Lake Minnewacan, a cavern used for their secret meetings and medicine dances. Now, for those of you that have seen enough of my episodes, we talk about a really amazing cave found in Arizona that was a ritual cave used by many of the tribes in that area. And the Masons, I think it was Phoenix, but I can't remember the exact area, took it over and turned it into a Masonic temple. But it already had a lot of the symbols of Freemasonry. In fact, many of the Masons in Arizona said that Arizona could be the actual oldest living representation of Masonry in the world, and that Masonry may not have been born in Europe, but in ancient America. So just keep that in mind as we keep going through here. It was reached through an arched passage in the bluff side, and its interior was not only lit up by the blaze of 1,000 flaming torches, beautiful stalactites descending from every portion of the ceiling, flashed and reflashed the darting rays, making the great room bright and brilliant. The secret orders or societies of the Indians must need have such places as this for their powwows, especially when taking in new brothers. The legends give but mere descriptions of these initiations, but there is sufficient to indicate that their proceedings were inclined towards barbarism and submitted to by the novices in order to show their faith and zeal in the cause. By certain signs and passwords, admission to the cavern was gained, and the would-be member brought before the Grand Council. Attired in a dark-colored suit trimmed with beads and rings, he was led by the young braves before the Grand Inquisitor and underwent his preliminary examination, in the course of which he admitted that he believed in the elevation of man. Immediately, the belt of a warrior was placed upon him, and he was elevated bodily heavenwards by means of a rope attached to one of the stalactites above. On returning to the floor, he took a refreshing draught from the golden bowl and took a seat upon a cake of ice until he was thoroughly rested. Having looked with longing eyes upon a fair maiden of a hostile tribe, he hesitated about renouncing all friendship for enemies of his nation, and he was compelled to run the gauntlet over iron spikes that penetrated his soul at every step. Succumbing to this ordeal, he took the necessary oath. Then he was taken before the medicine man for examination. By taking a knife and gashing his arms and breast, he proved himself to be of good courage, and he was declared worthy of full fellowship. Weird music floated through the elfin halls with low, sweet cadence as he was escorted to the furnace. The fires were at white heat and with a red-hot iron and a tremendous whoop. He was branded a warrior of the Minnewackans. Thence he returned to the Grand Council chamber, where he signed the Constitution and became a member in full fellowship. Then commenced the dance. Elves and sprites appeared in all directions, and taking tawny partners, they balanced and swung and circled and sung to the strains of fairy music. A brief reference to the embellishments of this wonderful cavern may not be out of place. A magnificent altar of perfumed cedar occupied one end of the council chamber. The chairs and tables were of oriental olive, fastened with golden nails and varnished with a mixture of gum shellac and diamond dust. The throne of the Grand Inquisitor was of a Japanese wood, inlaid, trimmed with gold, and decorated with precious stones. Velvet tapestries covered the ruby-colored pipestone floor, and lion and tiger skin took places of rugs. The golden vessels had been brought from an ancient temple of the old world, where the forefathers of the tribe had used them in similar festivals. Old and costly paintings adorned the walls, excepting occasional niches that were occupied by handsome pieces of statuary, and the passages were lined with Parian marble, trimmed with malachite and onyx. Treasures such as we would look for at Herculaneum and Pompeii were here laid at the feet of the original possessors of Dakota. Again, I'm going to reread this. Treasures such as we would look for at Herculaneum and Pompeii were here laid at the feet of the original possessors of Dakota. And who were more worthy of beauty, splendor, and magnificence than they, the noble red men? Savages? Nothing we're told makes any sense. The midnight banquet equaled all that might be expected at such a wonderful place. In daintiest styles were served the fish and game of the mountain and the prairie, brook trout, white fish, young swans, roasted with herbs, canvas back ducklings and celery, steaks of venison and bear. These were a portion of the viands set before the lads and lassies of the Minnewackans. Choice fruit, fine wines concluded the repast, and the dance was resumed. As morning approached, the torchlight diminished, and the golden blue rays of the aurora lent their aid to the elfin scene. The dancers danced on till day dawn, when they marched and countermarched to the music of the organ and the lyre, paid their respects before the throne of the Grand Inquisitor, and then tripped gaily through the arched passage to the wigwams of the nation, to the hunting grounds of the Minnewackans. How, oh how, the reader wonders, can I search this cavern? Ask the Fargo Argus, the Devil's Lake Inter-Ocean, the Jamestown Alert, or the Bismarck Tribune. Any of these far-famed exponents of intellect and veracity can inform thee, if they would, where to find this Dakota wonder of wonders, the enchanted cavern of the Minnewacan. Insane. I have another video that kind of lines up with this a little bit. Let's see if I can find it real quick. But it's in South America, and it discusses basically the exact same thing found here, but in South America. Give me 1 second. Lost Tribe of Israel found. 1904. Check out that video. Just like this, but South America. But yeah. Devil's Lake area Sioux tribe renamed as Spirit Lake. The tribe was resettled by the U.S. military at Fort Totten as people associated with the Minnesota massacre. Man, we don't party like that anymore. We party with a great purpose. We party, but what's our purpose? Yeah, drink, right? They really tried to wipe out the redheads everywhere, which is the same. They keep it flooded, and there's a military base machine shop over it. Wow. Reals? That's crazy. What was this one? This one for okay. Yeah, we should do this next one too. We'll do this next one too. All right, then this next one is going to cover a little bit more of the Masonic kind of overlays that exist with some of these tribes. It's a short one, and then we'll bounce back into this thread here, and we'll read some of the really interesting articles, and that's where we'll finish. So yeah, let's do this one last one here. This is from 1825. 1825. Proofs of the existence of the institution of Freemasonry among the North American Indians prior to the discovery of the country by Columbus. Yeah, everything goes way, way back. Yates and Moulton's History of New York. Those signs of Freemasonry which modern travelers have found are also thought to be of Welsh origin. Travelers describe certain private societies among the Indians, which apparently resemble our lodges of Freemasons. Their rules of government and admission of members are said to be nearly the same. No one can be received as a member of the fraternity except by ballot, and a concurrence of the whole is necessary to a choice. They have different degrees in the order. The ceremonies of initiation and the mode of passing through one degree to another would create astonishment in the minds of an enlightened spectator. It is not this practice of European origin? In the early periods of English history, the known's edge of Freemasonry was mostly confined to the Druids. Now remember, like that last article where they were talking about fairies and sprites and the lyre and the organ, right? And the Welsh correlations with the Mandan Indians, right? Very interesting. And we talk about the Druids and how the lyre and the organ, again, was found in that same temple in Arizona, cavern. And that certain tribes had instruments that wholeheartedly had these same correlations. Confined to the Druids, and Wales was more fruitful of this description of men than any other part of Europe. They were almost the only men of learning in those days. They executed the functions of priests, historians, and legislators. Those in Wales in particular animated their countrymen to a noble defense of their liberties and afforded so much trouble to the first, Edward, that he ordered them to be barbarously massacred. This ferocious tyranny was carried into effect about the year 1282. Few only of the bards survived to weep over the miseries of their country. But a similar institution, it is said, prevails among our Iroquois Indians. Again, this is the Northeast, but I'm just using this as an overlay with the connections with the Welsh. These have never been suspected to be of a Welsh extraction. Still, many have derived the signs from those who were. We received the information from Governor Clinton, to whom it was communicated by a respectable Indian preacher, who received the signs of the mysteries from a Mennonine chief. The institution, therefore, must be prevalent among the Menonones as well as other Indians. In this secret institution among the Indians, the members are very select. Among the Iroquois, the society consists of 5 Onidas, 2 Cayugas, 2 St. Regis, and 6 Senecas. They are said to have secret signs and pretend that the institution has existed for eternity. The period of their meetings is unknown, but they assemble once in 3 years as deputies under pretense of other business. If the Welsh Indians could be identified as descendants of Madoc's colony, or if the Alleghenies could be ascertained to have been Welsh, the discovered traces of civilization, Christianity, and the arts might partly be referred to their instrumentality. But the pre-existence of inhabitants when Madoc is supposed to have arrived, the crown population, for instance, in Ohio, 700,000, as Mr. Atwater has conjectured, which formerly swarmed over this continent, preclude the presumption that Madoc's colony, 300 years only before Columbus, were the first settlers, or that they and their descendants were the sole constructors of all of the mounds, temples, and fortifications that appear to have been erected. Well, we know that's ridiculous. They may have contributed to swell the tide of population from the north of Europe. This is the opinion of Delet, Hornius, and Mitchell. Now, in some of my series, what's my playlist? Talking about ancient Mexico. I cover the same symbols, the same Masonic symbols being found in Mexico. And the sacred mysteries of the Mayas and the Quiches, they discuss this quite blatantly, and they say, and even the Etruscans, the Etruscan history is that they came from the Yucatan, that the migration, as we're told, remember, is east to west, but they're saying it's west to east. And the story of Queen Mu is the same, that the sacred orders, these ancient mystic rites, their histories and foundations exist in the Americas, and they found their way to Europe. Not to the contrary of what we're told. And these articles I'm sharing with you showing this quite blatantly, that they weren't coming from east to west. They have contributed to swell the tide of the population of the north of Europe. This is the opinion of Delat, yes. And may have aided in constructing the fortifications and works bear so strong a resemblance to those of their own country. But limited must be the views that would circumscribe the origin of myriads who have swarmed over this continent to the narrow confines of Wales. So yeah, essentially what this reader is coming to the conclusion is that you can't believe anything about it being a east to west migration or east to west transfer of knowledge and ceremony, that it's completely the opposite. And even Columbus stated that he wasn't coming to a barren land, that this was the land of plenty, the Horn of Plenty, the original promised land, the old world. The old world, the true old world. All right. Back to this. Like I stated earlier, you can follow me along on Twitter. You can go back and read these at your leisure. But yeah, we're going to... What are we in? We're 110. Okay. We're going to start right here. Prehistoric, Dakota Territory, 1884. The mouth of a cave concealed. I have news of the greatest importance to convey to you, which you are at liberty to use as you see fit. On Saturday morning, the 26th, I, in company with Ned Hager and M.B. Doyle of Mandan, Thomas Williams, and Fred Wilson of Freeport, started up the Knife River Valley on a prospecting tour some 20 miles west of Stanton. We halted for refreshments at a place known as the Indian Crossing of the Knife, and said to have been the famous battleground and dividing line between the Sioux and Ree Confederates. Evidence of many a bloody encounter between the hostile Indians were still visible. Arrowheads Spearheads, war clubs, knives, some of which were fairly preserved, were found scattered here and there. These and other evidences of this being historic ground led to a general hunt for relics. After dinner, Ned Hadger and myself started up the river to hunt for relics and examine a high bluff about a mile above the crossing. We found nothing of importance until we arrived at the bluff, which is thickly covered with brush, with a few cedars holding on to a doubtful lease of life in the storm-beaten crevices. Hager was prowling along the foot of the bluff, closely scanning every opening for evidence of coal, when he discovered a huge opening by accident, as the mouth of the cave was naturally concealed with brush and wild grapevines. I will here give Mr. Hager's description of the inside of the cave as first revealed to him with the horror, and to tell the truth, he was frightened when he rushed out and shouted, "McGrath, I have found hell." I was at his side in a moment. His face was white unto snow, and his eyes showed the proof of having seen some unearthly vision. McGrath said, "There is a graveyard inside." I lit a match to look around after getting inside, when to my horror I saw skulls, bones, and then a skeleton apparently looking at me. I dropped the match and made a jump for daylight. I was in favor of further examining at once, but Mr. Hager said, "Not by a mill site," and commenced shouting for the other boys who joined us in a few minutes. The startling nature of the discovery was explained when it was resolved to go inside in force, fully armed, and explore the hole by aid of fire. Captain Doyle, being an old soldier and not being afraid of death or the devil, took the lead with a double-barreled shotgun, while the balance followed with a dry wool and a newspaper burning brightly. Mr. Hager brought up the rear with a revolver in each hand, ready to fight a retreat. In a few minutes, a bright fire was burning when objects became visible. No wonder Mr. Hager retreated in haste. Doyle's gun was shaking in his hand, while his face showed a determination to stand his ground if his legs were weak. To tell the truth, there were none in the party who felt like laughing. The skeleton that so alarmed Mr. Haggard was a hideous-looking god or idol made of wood and evidently carved out of cedar. One arm was extended upward, apparently appealing to the sun, and the other was extended across the breast, holding a large wooden knife. The eye holes are filled with peculiar stones that sparkled in the light. Paul Brown, I love every minute of this series. Thank you. I'll wait patiently for Georgia and soak up every episode until then. Oh, thank you so much for the donation. Means a lot to me. Appreciate it very much. Yeah, Georgia, if you haven't heard, I got a lot of family there, a lot of history there, and I have tons of material for Georgia. So that'll definitely be a great article. And again, your donation means a lot. Finding time for this series is difficult for me. Taking time away from my family and work to do the work and do the research and get all this stuff together. It's a lot. So, no matter how small the donations, they really do mean the world to me and my family. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you. This heathen Indian or prehistoric idol or god is unknown to Indian history in North America. It much resembles Hindu or Chinese idols, such as we find in illustrated histories of these countries. We found 4 skeletons that had evidently been encased or covered in a manner similar to the Egyptian mummies. We found nothing with the bones to indicate nationality, although it is evident that the mode of burial is not of American Indian. Two well-preserved spearheads, evidently of copper, were found resembling those of ancient Rome. A sort of dirk or small cutlass was found among a quantity of decayed matter. An inner cave was full of bones, skeletons, implements in copper, stone mills for grinding such as were used in ancient Egypt and parts of Asia. Fine specimens of pottery were also found. Two chambers led out of the second cave, which were so utterly black and dark that our best efforts failed to explore them. It is my candid opinion that a thorough examination of this ancient receptacle, cave, or whatever it may be, will unearth abundant evidence of a prehistoric race of people that have no connection with the American Indian. Oh, $50 donation. Thank you so much. I wish I could say your name. L with a bunch of lines. Man, really amazing. Really does, just it's not about the money. Just having you guys show up here and spend time with me, that really means the world to me. That's the most important thing, is that you just enjoy this. But man, thank you so much. It's very touching, It's your hard-earned money and means a lot. It is believed that the Rees, the Gros, the Ventres, and the Mandan Indians had their origin on this continent from Norwegian and Welsh explorers who first discovered Labrador in the year 1002, under charge of Leif, son of Eric the Red of Iceland. Ancient records sustained this theory. We brought what relics with us to Stanton that we could carry and have them carefully stored away. The mouth of the cave was carefully concealed, and as soon as we can get some gentleman who is versed on the subject of ancient relics, we shall return to the cave fully prepared to explore and recover every article of value stored in this wonderful place. Mr. Hager is of the opinion that the specimens of copper work already found antedate the Christian era. I mean, that right there, just what a potent sentence. At first, we all determined not to divulge the secret of the cave until a thorough exploration had been made. But a further conference decided to give the facts to the public after protecting our rights to the discovery. Yours, Thomas McGrath. Now, this article is incredible for a million reasons, right? Just, again, connecting a million dots. But I chased this newspaper and this Thomas McGrath for I read the next 2.5, 3 months of articles from this same publisher and never found another word of this cave again. And that's not the first time that's happened. Morgan Catching 538 became a big fan from hearing you on THC. You got to go back on there soon. Love from Texas. Thank you so much again for your donations. This is amazing. Appreciate it. I knew I'd miss getting notified notice. Yeah, you're like the fourth person to say that, Sherry. But thank you for being here. Nobody's getting my notices, but it's been so long since I've done these. I'm really just putting the blame on myself for not being consistent. It's hard to do in my life, unfortunately. But I really, really do have a huge goal for 2026 to get back to where I was and get this channel back to where it was. And I have some big goals, and you guys showing it up and the donations, man, I just can't tell you how powerful that is for me at this moment in my life. Finding the time for this, it's a big ask. And I appreciate each and every one of you. Paul Thank you. Gratitude. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it's great to be back, Saturn. Okay. So, anyways, like I was saying, this cave, you never heard anything about it again. Like so many of these articles I've read, and remember, like they were saying, that there were so many more rooms and halls in this cave that they couldn't even explore. And they took what they could carry and they planned on coming back, and the town found out. Remember, like they said, they decided to give the facts to the public. Well, just like the Smithsonian can show up and buy up everything and shut things down, I'm sure something similar happened here. Once the right people get wind of these things, unfortunately, you don't hear too much more. But think of what it took in this time frame to write these kind of things, right? That we're connecting this to Hindu or Chinese idols, Egyptian mummies, Roman artifacts, tempered copper. Just incredible. Grinding stones such as those used in ancient Egypt and parts of Asia. Crazy. All right, what time is it? 6:07. All right, I think we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got to get moving. Not enough time, too many articles. That's always the problem, isn't it? Okay. Prehistoric forest giant is found. When was this one? 1909. Senator Ferdinand Lutz has in his yard a unique relic of former days when trees grew profusely in North Dakota and the climate was of a tropical variety. We've been saying this. Here we are, episode 1 from Alaska to episode 24 in North Dakota. Tropical foliage again. It is a slab of petrified wood about 8 feet long by 5 feet wide, part stone and part lignite coal. Right? You've heard me talk about this before. Origins of coal, biogeological memories. Check out that video. In my work with Stellium 7, shout out Stellium. The correlations between, geology and the biological correlation, that geology is biogeology, that geology as we know it is a living landmark, living embodiment of our past, creature and man alike. And was taken from the Hebron Bricks Works coal mine, where it was found embedded in the coal. They have found full trees, standing trees in coal mines. They have found, I've covered a bunch of these. They've found wheels. They've found tools. They've found knives. They've found giant skeletons. They found, what was it, Colorado? The giant sandal. It was like 18 inches long. Sandal of a giant. They find all kinds of crazy petrifactions in these layers. And these coal is remnants of wood. Titanic wood. Trees of a monumental size. This section of a prehistoric tree is flat, even on the outside or side. The bark was on and leaves one to guess what the circumference of the tree may have been. It certainly was a monster and may easily have been 20 feet in diameter or 60 feet in circumference. Whoa. Insane, right? You think of the plains of the Dakotas. The idea of these trees, right? Makes no sense. Well, we're talking pre-flood, when the world was tropical. We've shown evidence of this in just about every state. And here is no difference. What better evidence can we find that the climate of a country does change? And many are now of the opinion that climate in this country is becoming visibly warmer with each decade. It used to be tropical, just like frozen Alaska, where they found mammoth tropical foliage. They found tropical trees. They found a tropical forest that was still somehow surviving in a volcanic state in Alaska. Mr. Biggs, 999. Oh man, thank you so much. Ben, can we expect to hear you on the Higher Side Chats again soon? You know, I owe Greg a lot, and I consider Greg a friend. And we've talked about doing another episode, and I'm sure it'll happen, but I need to get material out there. I got so much work to do, and I'm sure once I catch up on some of that work, Greg will have me on and I'll have new stuff to talk about. So I appreciate that. Yes, I would say yes. When we haven't scheduled anything, but I can't wait to do it again. My share shall come in due time. There is no price for the work you have done. Oh, appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. That's amazing. I'm grateful. You know, the money is awesome, but just you showing your interest and showing up for me means everything. The best reachers. Oh, thank you so much. Autodidactic Red. Well, is that the original? You're calling me analog, so you gotta be. Well, if that's you, hopefully we can get together soon. The Archivist of Stellium on Biogeology of Ancient. Thank you for listing that. Okay. Oh, look, and how perfect timing that you link that, Jillian, because this is an article he's referenced in several of his interviews, and a great one. Petrified heart found at Sterling. E.L. Herr is exhibiting unique rock-like formation in Bismarck. What is said by medical experts to be the petrified heart of a human being of gigantic stature is being exhibited in the city today by E.L. Herr, prominent farmer and breeder of big-type Poland China swine, who lives near Sterling. Mr. Herr found the unique rock-like formation on his farm several years ago, but the curiosity has never before been shown in Bismarck. The petrified heart is as hard as marble and weighs 2 1/4 pounds. It has an appearance identical to that of a human heart. Physicians say, except that it is considerably larger. The veins are easily discernible, and the various cavities contained in a heart are shown. Even some of the muscles can be clearly seen. Mr. Herr found the curio on the top of the ground following its first plowing. He made a diligent search for other remains of a human body or animal in the vicinity, but found nothing except a small section of what appeared to have been intestines. This was also petrified. No bones of any kind could be located. The petrified heart is attracting considerable attention since, so far as known here, nothing of its kind has ever before been found. Well, we've shared dozens of petrified organs over the course of this series, so we know that's not true, but nonetheless, incredibly remarkable. Oh, Autodidactic Red, thank you. Geez, you guys, this is amazing. Appreciate it. The donations I don't know what to say. I'm so grateful. Too excited listening to even write a message with a super chat. Oh, well, thank you so much. Old War Micmac, $2. Appreciate you too, brother. Appreciate you showing up and watching these over the years. It means a lot. A Canadian episode one day would be epic. I live in Ontario, and the old world is everywhere. I would love to do that. It would be my honor. Yeah, of course. I mean, I have so much worldwide material that I don't know if that I'll ever get to, just because I feel so overwhelmed just getting the Anomalous America material finished. So, but yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. All right. Okay. We're at 90 minutes. That was kind of my limit. I got dinner and bedtime and work tomorrow and blah blah blah. But let's do a few more. I owe it to you guys. All right. A Graveyard of Giants. 2 miles from Mandan, on the bluffs near the junction of the Hart and Missouri rivers, is an old cemetery of fully 100 acres in extent, filled with bones of a gigantic race. This vast city of the dead lies just east of the Fort Lincoln Road. The ground has the appearance of having been filled with trenches piled full of dead bodies, both man and beast, and covered with several feet of earth. In many places, mounds from 8 to 10 feet high, and some of them 100 feet or more in length, have been filled with bones and broken pottery, vases of various bright-colored flints and agates. The pottery is of a dark material, beautifully decorated, delicate in finish, and as light as wood, showing the work of a people skilled in the arts and possessed of a high state of civilization. That makes me think of ceramics, right? As light as wood. This has evidently been a grand battlefield where thousands of men and horses have fallen. Nothing like a systematic or intelligent exploration has been made, as only little holes 2 or 3 feet in depth have been dug. In some of the mounds, but many of the bones of man and beast and beautiful specimens of broken pottery and other curiosities have been found in these feeble efforts at excavation. We asked an aged Indian what his people knew of these ancient graveyards. He answered, "We know nothing of them. They were here before the red man." What else do we got going on here? Ben sounds good and happy. Oh, thank you, Sherry. Yeah, I think, again, like I stated earlier, you know, when there were only 30 of you or so in here, it's been weighing on my heart, this channel. And, you know, Longo here, who's hopped in, hopefully he's still here. I owe a lot of it to him. I mean, I owe most of it to him. Without his pressure and perseverance and basically forcing me to do this, I wouldn't have all of you guys and this amazing YouTube channel and, you know, the hundreds and hundreds of emails I've received over the years and all the amazing donations and responses and comments. I owe so much to you guys. And yeah, life is hard, you know, and finding time to do this and be a father and a husband and, you know, an employee and all these other things. It can be really hard sometimes and, you know, a little depressing, but anyways, you guys all make it worth it. And yeah, it definitely cheers me up finding time to sit here and do this with you guys and know that there's still an interest for it, even with the huge delay that I've had and the constant rescheduling. And yeah, I just feel like I let you guys down sometimes. And so anyways, we got an encore. Yes, encore for sure. Absolutely. Again, I love you, Longo. Appreciate you so much, man. Yeah, you deserve a lot of credit for sure. I think about it every day, every time I record a video, every time I respond to a comment. Wouldn't be here without you. Miss you, man. All right. Shell mounds. We talked about Coquina, that a lot of the brickwork here was using mortar, very similar to your Florida style. And the shell mounds here, all the way up in North Dakota. Okay, we're going to do Dakota's ancient forests, and then we're going to wrap it up here. I got to make dinner and get the kids ready for bed. At a recent meeting of the Minnesota Academy of Science at Minneapolis, John B. Lieber gave the following theory regarding the disappearance of the forests and the development of the treeless areas in Dakota. Great flood, one may say, and a plasma event, one may say, right? These coal beds, we're talking about insane amounts of heat, biblical events. A noticeable feature of the prairies of North Dakota, west of the Missouri River, is the immense amount of silicified wood scattered over the surface everywhere. This is in a region now almost bare of arboreal vegetation, naturally leads one to speculate on the causes that have operated to destroy this ancient forest growth and prevent any other from taking its place in modern times. The soil is rich and fruitful, and the average rainfall is sufficiently large to warrant us in not classing the climate as arid. Some ascribe the cause to prairie fires, but it is plain that there are other causes constantly tending to enlarge those timberless areas toward the east. There on every hand may be seen the abundant remains that testify to vast forests in no distant epoch, where now only the fossil or carbonaceous remains we are met with. The pebbles in the beds of the streams are all fossil wood. In every variety of silicification, often very beautiful. The grain of the wood, the ducts, the knotty branches are all preserved. Not only the wood of the limbs and the trunks of these ancient trees are preserved, but even stumps still remain in the ground. It is a rather novel and strange arrangement that the settler upon these prairies, in order to clear his farm, should be obliged to get rid of the stumps of trees that flourished 25,000 years ago, perhaps. Occasionally, a large trunk is found just as it fell. We see, too, how closely the then existing slava was related to our own. Sorry, this is all blurred out here. Now, the connection between the moisture of the atmosphere and the forest growth is established. We got a new member, Julie Sunshine. Thank you for becoming a member. Appreciate you. Lewis, I think I can speak for everyone here. You don't need to apologize to us. Thank you for everything. Yeah, it weighs on my heart, put a lot of, love and effort into this, and to feel like people like you guys will put in the time to watch this, let alone donate, is a wonderful feeling. Nobody gives a fuck. I let people down every stream. Yeah, you definitely are better with the zero fucks than I am. That's for sure. You definitely let that stuff not bother you. I wish I had that. Okay, where was I? He maintained that there has been a gradual drying up in this region. This he attributes to the continual rising of the western side of the continent. The continuous slow elevation of the country west has caused the disappearance of the forest by shutting off the moisture. If the western side of the continent continues to rise, then the climate of the plains to the east of the mountains on the Pacific coast will continue to grow drier until it grows too arid to support any form of vegetable life. So yeah, I think this is an important takeaway. You've heard me talk about all of the petrified forests that they found all over the western United States, west of the Mississippi, really everywhere in America, worldwide, I'd say, but we've covered a lot of them. And the amount of minerals they were getting from these petrified forests were absolutely incredible. Mining companies were buying these trees because it was far more efficient than mining the ground. I mean, I can't remember the exact tonnage, but it was like 60 pounds of silver to the ton in these petrified trees, which is insanely high. So these petrified trees had gold, silver, all kinds of incredible things inside of them. So when one hears of a standing petrified forest still left in North Dakota, it's pretty incredible. Not to mention all the other things we've read tonight on this episode. Holy geez, Louise. Okay, thanks for presenting my state. You're awesome. Keep it up. Oh, appreciate it. Redbird, geez. Thank you so much. Love you guys. Man, this has been amazing. So happy to start the new year off with a continuation of my favorite project, Anomalous America. I wouldn't be here without you, Connor, and all you guys listening. CMA, new member, welcome. Thank you. Yeah, and I'm going to be continuing my members series. So those of you that have stuck with me and been members, and those of you new members, working on continuing the members only series. So stay tuned for that. But I got to wrap it up here. I want to keep going all night, but fatherly duties and all of those things, you know how it is. So again, thank you for making this one of the most memorable streams I think I've ever done. Wow. I don't know what to say besides thank you. And I appreciate you guys all so much. And yes, episode 25 is pretty much done already. Believe it or not, North Dakota was far more difficult. Let's get rid of this. How do we get rid of the share screen? Remove. How do I make myself bigger? Dude, I mean, they changed so much since I used this last. I just am failing. North Dakota was really hard, believe it or not, even though I'm super happy with this material. South Dakota was just insane. In fact, I'd say 50% of the hours I have into this series was just filtering out the South Dakota material from the North Dakota material. So yeah, that's going to be an easy one. Expect that. I want to say within a week, but again, I'm not going to stick to hard dates just because basketball started. I mean, it's, winter break is over. I got a million things going on, so I don't want to give anybody dates and let people down again. But my New Year's resolution is to get back to really pouring a lot more time into YouTube, and I think I couldn't ask for a better sign that you guys appreciate the work and are looking forward to more. And I just feel very blessed and grateful and all of those things. So again, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Anomalous America, and catch you guys at the next one. Love you all so much and can't say thank you enough. Happy New Year, and see you all very soon. Good night, guys.